Hope that you're doing well. This is the fifth installment of these Soul Care Wednesdays. As I was saying, is something that came to my mind. Dragon 123561. I salute you. Thank you so much for letting me know that I was on mute. These things do happen. So I was talking about fear in general, fear. I was talking about the Soul Care Wednesdays. That's something that dropped on my mind. And I was like, why is it like, oh, we can't really prosper and be in good health, which is the basis of all these channel, the thing that I do on this channel to kind of try encourages to have healthy, healed bodies, so that 3 John 2:1 says that you may prosper and be in good health even as your souls prosper. Our souls, if they're not prospering, we cannot be in good health. And that's why when you're looking at self-care, is important for your self-care and things like that to start with their soul. And so we have done 4 episodes. We've looked at things like forgiveness. We've looked at things like identity. We've looked at things like establishing new habits and getting rid of old habits. And if there's any of those episodes that you have missed, please do catch up with it. As I said earlier on, which I was on mute, I didn't know that. Obviously, it means that somebody did not hear that. So if you have not been able to catch up with the other episodes, please do so. It will be helpful. And as I was saying, I've had quite really interesting conversations. The other day, I was chatting with some of my siblings who I didn't really know. They've been watching these episodes, and it's been quite really helpful to hear their side of stories and their judgment of me, so to say. So today's episode, we will be looking at fear. And as I said, fear for me, the acronym fear is just false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And as I'm mentioning before, when I was growing up, when I was younger, I really feared so many things. I remember when I was going through a growth spurt, I would be so afraid of going to bed that literally I had to go either and force myself to get into either my mom's bed or an older sibling's bed, because I just couldn't be able to face the fact that I was growing up and the fact that I could sleep and maybe I could start to feel like, oh, I'm falling in a ditch or something like that. And so for me, nights were always a difficult time when I was younger. And it was just because of that fear that was most of the time crippling me. As I became older, there are times that I've been afraid for a very long time. I was so fearful of the day when they'll call me to tell me, oh, your mom has passed away, or oh, your dad has passed away. And that came to happen. I have lost all my parents, all of them in less than 6 years difference. And I can tell you, whenever that call came in the morning, when somebody called me and say something about my dad, the fear came in like, are they still there? Like, because it's something that I had been rehearsing for quite some while and thinking, what will happen when they are gone? And yeah, it's painful. I think about them so many times, and there are times that I just want to speak to something to them and they're not here. But life sometimes has to move on. I remember there are times when my boy was younger, I could be afraid even of taking him to bed, because I'd be like, what if he sleeps and something happens when he's in bed? And I know very well nothing will happen, but just in my mind, the fear that I allowed myself to cripple me. There are times that I've allowed myself to, some of us will be having those fears of missing out, right? The FOMO. You are fearful of missing out of things that we end up driving cars that we know very well. They're cars that we don't need to be driving, but because we're even in debt to be able to drive those cars, right? Because we don't want to miss out. Some of us end up into cartels. We end up into groups that we shouldn't be in. We end up with friendships that we shouldn't have, even in marriages that we shouldn't be in, or relationships that we shouldn't be in. Some of us are even in places and spaces where we know they're not serving us well, but because of that fear, we actually are stuck in those places. We allow fear to cripple us. And today I heard somebody saying something earlier that stuck with me. They said, if you're fearful, you won't even hear. If you're fearful, you won't hear. Some of us, we are being warned of things that we should come off from them, cut off some relationships, even with food and things like that. But because we are so fearful, and we are so full of fear, we actually can't hear anybody's advice in our lives. We've gotten to a place where we're so complacent and maybe clinging to the familiarity because of the fear of the, some of us, the fear of the unknown. Earlier on, again, I saw another post where it just took people crazy. They were talking about death, and they were like, "Oh, what happens for some of us who have like a YouTube channel? If I die, what happens to my channel?" And it struck so much conversations, and you could see the fear of death in people's lives. There are some of us that today, if somebody tells you is the last day of your life, you will not even sleep because you always constantly afraid of death. Some of us are afraid of living. Some of us are afraid of dying. Some of us are afraid of the future. Some of us are afraid of even making mistakes. We are crippled by fear. There is a healthy side of fear. Of course, fear that helps us to realize, like, if there's danger, your body should actually sense that, and the fear will actually cause some hormones to come into play, and that will either cause you to decide to flee if you can run away. Sometimes we may freeze because of fear, and sometimes we may end up into fight mode. It might be something because, of course, it affects how the adrenaline is released in our bodies, and that can actually impact at the end our response. We need some healthy fear that will protect us from harm. When you have no sense of fear, in the sense that you see you're going to get yourself into trouble and you still keep on going, there's a problem with that, because there's some good place where fear plays a role in our lives. But the bad fear that I'm talking about is the fear that is really crippling some of us. Could it be that we are having even some of these things like anxieties because, again, please do not take these as medication or medical advice to start diagnosing yourself. But could it be some of us who might even have things like anxiety because of fear? I remember sometimes in the past, last year to be precise, I had some bouts of anxiety, and it was just because of the fear of the unknown. I'm fearful of a new work environment. I'm fearful of what will tomorrow bring. I'm fearful of what will my visa status do. I'm fearful of what if I get fired from my job. And if you're doing a good job, why should you be afraid of being fired from your job? And if you even get fired from your job, could that be a blessing to make you sit down and think about, okay, I've been fired. What are these skill sets that I have that I can be beneficial to another person, right? Even if it's something like, sometimes when you sit down, for me, the things that really were crippling me were the what ifs. What if I don't meet the deadline? What if I miss my class because the way where I'm teaching at the moment and where I taught before, it's completely different. We start 10 past the hour. Where I was teaching before, we start bang on the hour. And I was constantly worried. What if I get to the point where I've forgotten I should be in this class at this time? What if my husband leaves me? What if my son, those kind of things. And they get to a point where if you don't get a way of processing the fear, it can become crippling to you. And we need to deal with those fears. And sometimes when you're dealing with the fears, you can do it by yourself, or sometimes you may need therapy, right? I am really one of those kind of people that I really advocate for therapy. If you need therapy, go for therapy. That's what will help you at the end of the day. If you need counseling, go for counseling. If you need whatever that you need, but do not allow fear to cripple you, right? Do not allow unhealthy fear to actually make you become a bit mad, as Rocco one star is saying, that you actually start to behave kind of like crazy at things like that. You might even get to a point where some of us, we end up failing simple things, exams and things like that, because of fear, right? I remember when I was today I'm going to be very real. When I was doing driving, I kept on failing because I was just so afraid. When I was back home in Kenya a couple of years back, I remember sometimes I used to get to a point where I will be driving. I'll be like, I needed to cycle to work, motorcycle. I was riding a motorbike. And in my mind, I get to a point where I'm just kind of worried. What if a goat runs into the road? I mean, you get it? What if? And before I realized, those what ifs were actually making me, I had a nasty fall with a motorbike. I almost broke my leg because of the fear of the unknown. And that's why when I'm talking about dealing with fear, it's so real. And the Praetorian says, if the narcissistic people who drive others to the breaking point. And that's why if you are dealing with a narcissist or somebody with a narcissistic tendencies, if you're afraid, I said earlier on, fear will cause you not to hear. People will be warning you. You'll have those telltale warning signs that you're like, Claire, you need to leave these relationship, this narcissistic person, but because you're so afraid, you're afraid of facing life without that person. Some of us end up in cruel relationships. We end up, I don't know, this kind of things that we deserve better in life. But fear, unhealthy fear, needs to be broken. And you need to do whatever that you need to do, boy, girl, wherever, to say to yourself, fear, you can't have the last word for me. Don't be afraid of what tomorrow brings, because as long as you have the opportunity, and sometimes for some of us, the fear that we have is actually rooted so much into our past. I tried something and I failed, and so I'm afraid if I do it again, I will fail. Who said that? Where is the evidence that once a failure, you're always a failure? You can learn from your mistakes and move on and that's why I'm a strong believer of making tomorrow better than today. And the fact that you have a chance to make tomorrow better, you don't have to let that fear to cripple you. And so today on our Soul Care Wednesday episode, I just want to encourage you and say, sit down, face fear straight on in your face and say, fear, you're not going to have the last part of me. And as I said, there is that healthy fear that we all need, that healthy fear that keeps us from danger. But if there's that fear that limits you from living your full potential and your full life, hey, get up and say, I have to deal with this. And there are so many different ways. As I said, you can do that by yourself. You may want to do that with somebody who's trained. As I said, I'm not giving any medical advice on this channel because I'm not qualified to do that. I'm a nutritionist. I can talk about nutrition. I'm an exercise enthusiast, whatever it is. I can talk about exercise. I can show you how to exercise. I can show you how to deal with physical things, but when it comes to those soul emotional things, you may need, for you to be able to have that emotional well-being, you may need a little bit more help. And also just always sit down with yourself and ask yourself, is this real? Is this my reality? Like, as I said, I constantly lived I can't tell you for how many years, every single day, I will sit down and find myself in that, wow, what if? And it's not helping. It's not helpful at all, because you're just kind of allowing yourself to constantly have a high level of adrenaline, which is telling you have to take a response, and that can actually end up resulting in other health issues. And you don't want to have that, because if you have other health issues, then even things like weight loss, things like healthy, healed body will be something that you'll be dreaming of, but you can't really get. Some of us are even afraid. There's a good one, to even just step out and go maybe to the gym, because you're thinking like, oh my world, how my body, I'm not undermining body image issues. But sometimes you have to stand and say, those people who are in the gym, sometimes I've been in the gym in the morning and I'm the only woman, girl, wherever in that gym, and the rest are men. If you see the things that men are doing in the gym in the morning, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? But because I know I have an equal right to be there. I tell myself, fear, you'll not cripple me. I'll go in there, even if I'm the only one person in there, and get in and do my thing and come out. Don't allow fear to actually make you to make wrong choices. As I said, some of us are living borrowed lives because of fear of missing out. You live you need that kind of a life. We're living a life whereby you're like, oh, the Praetorian can lift 100 kilos in the gym in the morning. And then I'm like, I don't want to miss out. I go start trying 100 kilos. I mean, I'm going to collapse, wouldn't I? Right? If I start today to say my neighbor just bought a new Range Rover, so I need to kind of not fear missing out. I need to go and get myself there. I don't have money for a Range Rover, right? So I might end up getting a loan, and then I end up having troubles because I'm trying to live a life of fear of missing out to please other people. Some of us, we go out for dates, we go out for things that you know very well you shouldn't be doing them, but because of that fear, what if I fear of looking the old one out? What if I'm the old one out? What if I'm the only one? Everybody else is doing it. Everybody else is not you, girl. Everybody else is not you, boy. If everybody else is doing it, you don't have to do it. If you don't need a Mercedes Benz, you don't have to buy a Mercedes Benz because your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your next door neighbor has bought a Mercedes Benz, right? You don't have to go for a party because everybody else is going for the party. You binge eat, you binge drink, come back the next day, you're having headaches, you're having hangover, you have to deal with those things. You've spent what you didn't need to spend because you want to be part of a community. Community is important. It plays a big role in who we are and in our lifelines. And I am a great advocate of doing life with other people. I'm doing life with you guys right now because you are my tribe, right? I can see Praetorian, I can see Sam, I can see other people live and leaving their chats, leaving their comments and things like that. And that's motivating me to keep on doing what I'm doing. But then also, I wouldn't just wake up in the morning and decide to do something weird just because somebody on YouTube said it's a good thing to do. You have to evaluate and just say, I'm going to face this fear, right? And say, well, I am who I am. I know who I am. And that's what we talked about identity, allowing yourself, your identity to be what will actually continue to help you at the end of the day. And I love Kate says, I appreciate channels about addiction, right? When it gets to a point where we get even to that cycle, we become addicted to things because we are afraid. We need to break out from that, right? We need to come out from that. It's taken me over a year of constantly telling myself, fear is not my place. And that's why things like affirmation really help a lot. When I start to get myself getting into that mode, there are times that I've just gone into bed and I've just been there. My eyes are closed. But because I'm just constantly thinking and fearful, I can't even sleep. And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. I'm going to work tomorrow. But I'm so scared of facing the day tomorrow that I can't even get myself to sleep. And then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh my world, I'm so exhausted. And I'm like, I'm now fighting with exhaustion. And if I don't sleep well, I'm so grumpy. If I don't sleep well, I'll be so tired because I'm afraid of making mistakes. Thank you so much, Kate. I can see that. And thank you, Praetorian. I'll come back to that. People are the enemy in a minute. And because I'm so scared and so, then it just zaps the energy out of me. I come back home and I'm just like lifeless and feeling like, but then it's taken me a year to realize what are those things in my life that I have control over. I can control my feelings. I can control my reactions to other people, but I can't control other people's reactions to me. I can't control other people's feelings and perception of me. And so if I constantly live, what does so and so think about me? What? I mean, how carry that weight with me around me, and that's gonna cripple me and just rob me of good quality years. And so today, the charge for all of us is try to reason with those what ifs, which are the main points that cause us to go into anxiety, into fear. Ask yourself, what if, like some of us, we're thinking of, what if, like, the world comes to an end tomorrow? Okay, what if it doesn't come to an end tomorrow, right? Always try to think of the opposite of what you're thinking about. And somebody even said, my friend Abby usually says, when you're talking about affirmations, don't dwell on the negative, dwell on the positive. What if this addiction never goes away? What if it goes away? Because there's always the two sides of the same coin. Don't be a negative person of constantly looking at the negative. You know, the half full, half empty glass analogy, where some people will always see everything half empty, half empty, half empty. Why not see it as half full? So when fear looks at you, you look fear straight in the eyes and say, yes, it might look, my reality looks like this, but the truth is there is more to life than that. I'm more than what life is having at the moment. I might be down at the moment financially, but I'm more than that in life. I can be better tomorrow, right? You can always, and that's why when you go to work out, when you go to exercise, when you eat, when you do anything, do from that place of being bold and courageous and saying to yourself, I can. Get those affirmations. Thank God for internet. There are all affirmations against fear. You can start affirming, and what you repeat, you become. Constantly telling yourself, repeat those things until, like, speak yourself. Yeah, speak yourself into becoming courageous. Speak yourself into carrying yourself out of that fear mode until you become somebody that can face fear straight into the eyes and say, fear, you're not having me. Those false evidences that are appearing to be real, you're not going to be having me, because that's not true and that's not reality. It may be this way. I might be having an illness, but that does not mean that equals to death. Some of us are living already dead lives because we were told we have XYZ, and we're constantly fearful. Like maybe something happens and you're constantly Googling and looking at the symptoms and signs. And Google has this way of giving you the worst ever prognosis. You say, oh, you see those signs and symptoms that you have, it's cancer. You're dying in 4 months. And then for some of us, we even carry that along with us. And I mean, if you need proper diagnosis, please don't get me wrong. There is the place of medication. Go to the hospital, go to the physician, but don't let those things that you hear, you pick up. Now we have even this conflict going on, like around the world. I was talking to somebody earlier on in the morning, was saying, are we going to go into the Third World War? I don't know. And I don't want to be afraid of that, because I will start be worrying. I'll be like, oh my world, the world is coming to an end. We know it will come to an end at some point. And so we are not going to allow ourselves to be fearful of what we don't have control over. And it just gets the worst out of us rather than taking every single day. They say today is a gift, right? Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is the future. We don't know what tomorrow brings, but we can receive today as a gift. Present in the moment, live in the moment, be present, celebrate what you have today, celebrate who you are today, celebrate the giftings that you have today, be grateful for the things and the people in your life and every opportunities, your health, your wealth, your relationships, and make those gratitude and those things that you are grateful for help you to realize he who gave you XYZ can actually give you Y, ABC, and so be grateful, and so allow yourself not to walk in a fearful life. All right, I'm going to look at some comments and see if I can answer if there's any question, because I need to go. As I said, I have a meeting at 7 and I'm the one who's leading it, so I'll disappear in a minute. The Praetorian is saying, I think you're talking about people being the enemies. Yes, people can be the enemies, but also remember, you give them the keys to be the enemies, right? You have so much opportunities. You have so much power, and sometimes we don't realize that, right? I believe so much, like, if I go back to last year, as I was saying, I gave so much power to people that did not need that power in my life, and that actually resulted in crippling me at the end of the day. So people can be the enemies, but you can set. There's a book that talks about boundaries, right? People can be enemies, but you can set boundaries and to say, if this person is always causing me to be fearful, is always causing me to see the negative, I'm going to set a boundary. I will set the boundary. Some of them, they might be our relations, right? They might be family. You can't do anything about family, but you can detect and say, I'm going to only speak to these people this amount of time, because every time I speak to them more than this time, I just end up with a lot of fear, and that's not what I want. If I wish they make a move, you can also make them make a move, because you'll be like, as I said, if you have those boundaries, you say, this is my space and I'm not going to allow you into this space unless you really show me a reason why you need to be in those, in that space. And then the other one, you say, the thing I hate most about why you sit in the car, I'll answer that in a minute. The thing I hate the most about these idiots is how others think that they are right to judge or have some kind of weak access to my life, true or false. It does not belong to them. Again, it doesn't belong to them. Do not give them the power. As I said, our life, we have so much power in our lives, and sometimes through fear, we end up giving the power to other people, and they start to manipulate us. They can hide behind the law, etc. But you can take your power back and say, wait, hang on a minute, you're not having it. You're not having me today. And then somebody's asking me why you sit in the car and make a live stream. Basically, because right now, if I go inside of my house, I will not be able to make a live stream because of the noise that exists in my house. And my car is actually, I call my car a sanctuary, so to say, because I get so much inspiration when I'm in my car. I like most of my good thoughts, if I ever say that, or inspirational thoughts, either come when I'm running or when I'm in my car. And so that's why what I've said in the last 20 something minutes, because the first one was all on mute, I wouldn't be able to say that if I was in my house or if I was somewhere else. It's just that inspiration that comes. And for me, because I'm alone here, it's my space, is my time to think and connect with my tribe. That's why I do it. I've done some live streams as well from the comfort of my house. I've done some live streams from the backyard. I've done some live streams from the gym. I've done this morning a live stream when I was doing like just the last part of my exercise from the front of my house. So I do it anywhere. But when I'm doing the soul care, because I really want to focus on what I'm talking about, this is my sanctuary. This is my solitude space. This is my safe space that I can say and do and talk without feeling the interruptions. Awesome. Any other questions before I disappear? And before I disappear, can I just say thank you? Thank you so much to each one of you who have been here with me tonight. Thank you for Katie Praetorian. Thank you to Ayatollah. Thank you to, who else has been here? There's been Sam. Thank you to Dragon. You are the man of the night who really helped me to realize I was on mute. I didn't know that. So the first 5 minutes of my live stream were all on mute, and he came to my rescue. Thank you to all of you who are silent followers, silent listeners, are always welcome to every conversation. Thank you so much. I want to bring it to an end. As I say, I enjoy these episodes because it's more speaking to myself, and I do lots of self-evaluation and self thoughts about them. So I'm not just doing this for you guys. I listen to what I do myself as well. So I kind of, in a way, it reminds me every time that I'm not just talking for the sake of views and things like that, but I'm talking because I believe somebody can be helped with the information that we are able to share. And today, literally, honestly, I've been sharing my life. I might go into a little bit more, oh, well, woohoo, my sister has been listening to me. That's really, she needs a hats off. She's been listening to me, and I'm really grateful that she has joined, and I can see I can see her message. She's my eldest sister. So I really love this woman. She's a great woman of valor, a woman of God. I celebrate her. We do life together, and that really makes a whole difference. Of course, there's that sisterhood, but also beyond the sisterhood, she's a friend of mine. And the fact that she's watching this really, really, really leaves me really, really humbled. Guys, I've got to go, as I said. Have a great evening, and I shall catch up with you again next Wednesday, same time, same place, in my sanctuary, in my car, when we meet again for the 6th episode of the Self-Care Wednesday. Until then, my praise that you will prosper and be in good health, even as the souls prosper. Thank you for your time tonight. Please listen back. It might be something that will be helpful to someone. If you know who can benefit from that, feel free to share with them. I pray that you prosper and be in good health, even as your souls prosper. May the Lord richly bless you and keep you. May He watch over you, and may His face shine upon you and give you His peace. And I shall catch up with you very soon. Shalom, and do not allow fear to cripple you. Face fear in the face and tell fear you're not having the final say. I am bold as a lion. I am courageous, and I move in life without worrying about what the future will bring. Have a great evening, guys. See you again soon. Goodbye.